movie and so on, a guilty feeling that was constantly harassing Paul. But Paul writes about the efficacy of the cross and the blood and the death of Christ and so on. And guiltiness seems to be connoting a negative kind of a thought. So I was wondering how you reconcile, otherwise we all go with a lot of guilt of the past sins.
We should.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I believe that Paul knows that he is actually totally forgiven because of his faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. But even then, he doesn't quite forget. I'm not saying that he doesn't forgive himself. I'm saying that he doesn't forget that he was a persecutor of Christians and putting them to death and all that, taking innocent lives, so to speak. He never forget that. And how do we know? It's because he repeatedly mentions it in his so-called letters. So it tells me that it is something that's very deeply embedded in his mind. And I've no doubt that actually Paul, by virtue of his so-called understanding of the gospel, he knows that he's completely forgiven already. And in fact, it can be very true of my life as well. I'm very sure I'm forgiven of all my sins, but there were certain things I wish I had done rightly towards my parent, perhaps. I could have been kinder to my father. At that time, I was only 15 years old when my father actually was diagnosed with cancer. And I was too young to even understand what was cancer. And my mother, typical Asian family, didn't want to tell me that my father was dying. So all I knew was that my father was constantly in pain. But I chose to ignore him, because I couldn't handle all this constant pain coming from him. And I didn't know that he was dying. So after he died, I was very, very sad. And then years later, as I understood cancer and all those things, and then maybe, constant reflection, I felt guilty. But I have no doubt that actually God has forgiven me. And I have no doubt that my father himself also never bear a grudge against me for that attitude. Okay, he died within a very short span of time. I think within 5 or 6 months he died because he was diagnosed too late, from throat cancer. So that is something which I can identify with Paul, if you ask me, regarding his persecution of the church. It's true that we are all forgiven, but some things in life just don't go away. Yeah.
Just to stretch what you just said, feeling of guilt. Just simply more than guilt per se of the past, but rather using it to now a persecutor has turned into a preacher. Could it also be to express the legitimacy of the gospel that he's carrying now?
Yes, amen. Okay? So if you look at all those contexts where the expressions are taken, Paul is actually saying that even though he was so bad, he is now, changed. And he is now being given the commission to be an apostle and so on. Yes, there's this positive part. And I wish that we shouldn't just dwell on the negative parts in our life, but to see that actually it is out of these negative parts that make the positive possible. Okay? Make the positive even more enhanced in a way.
What is your position on ordaining women as a church?
Okay, this is a very live issue right now in my denomination, the Presbyterian Church in Singapore, and I'm right in the middle of that because I'm chairing the Theological Response and Review Committee, and in my committee were all the scholars, and then there was one lady scholar who is very staunchly supporting women ordination, and then there's another one who was trained some very conservative seminary overseas. He is staunchly against women ordination, and I'm right there in the middle. I come from a tradition where actually women are not ordained, but through the years as I look at the scriptures, I realize that actually it is a more balanced view that actually God would accept both men and women in ministry.
Men.
And ministry is actually the community's affirmation of God's call in that individual's life. And this is actually culminating in ordination. So ordination is an acknowledgement by the church as a community of God's people that this individual has been set apart for the ministry, right? So in that light, I don't think it is impossible for women to be ordained. and I hold that position within the Presbyterian Church in Singapore as well. And officially, that is the position of the Presbyterian Church in Singapore. It's just that there are some pastors who are not agreeable to that. And we don't want to pursue the matter too strongly in case there's a church split. So we are always trying to come to a mediating situation. Yeah, it's a very tricky. I've been doing it for I think 12 years already. I think since I came back from UK. Okay. What is your position? Actually, I'm very interested. Indian Pastors Fellowship.
Ordination, you mean, is equivalent to being a pastor in charge?
Oh, pastor in charge, not necessarily. Not necessarily. So actually,
those are two different things.
two different things. But I have no problem with a pastor in charge being a lady. Okay, but there are two different things. It doesn't mean that if I'm ordained, I'm immediately the senior pastor, because in a church there could be other ordained ministers who are designated as senior pastor. So the ordination is actually a kind of a ritual that affirms my full-time calling as a minister in the church. But the appointment of whether I'm the pastor or associate pastor, those are actually within the church structure. So it's, I take it as quite separate issue. I may have to be elected in order to be a pastor in the church. But the ordination one, once I'm ordained, I'm ordained. I mean, yeah, I'm very happy to hear your position as well. Okay, am I stretching the... I'm afraid later on you all can't get to see the picture of Paul's sarcophagus if we run out of time.
10 minutes. So we'll take the 10 minutes break.
Okay, good. Actually, I have a picture of the break. Let's see. This one is the picture of the Apostle Paul. I mean, this is not a real one. This one is a modern painting. The next one? Time for break.
Okay, we'll come back at 11. Padron break the room. Right, thank you.
Sorry.
About some woman in the church, and he is telling him don't allow this woman to preach and to exercise authority over men. So I think I will stop at that. Otherwise,